I have it as 7 o'clock. Are you good to go, Rebecca?
Yes.
Oh, a quorum. All right. That said, I'd like to officially call to order the Tuesday, July 6, 2021 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. And pursuant to the extension of Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this public meeting of the Town of Bolton Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but the public can access this meeting while in progress by Zoom video communications. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by telephone, cell phone, or personal computer using Zoom. That said, by tradition, we will start with a roll call. I am Brian Barabee.
Emily Winter.
Bill Payne.
Rebecca Longbaugh.
Perfect. And first up this evening, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a request for determination of applicability for 258 Harvard Road, proposed landscaping and tree removal. Sorry.
Did you want to provide an update on those who were able to go out and visit the site? Any remaining questions or concerns?
Love to. I was able to get out there. Any other commission members who were able to get out there want to share initial thoughts?
I have a few things I'd like to share, not necessarily a determination on, but
Please.
Just some kind of observations. I think there were about 5 mature pines that were in pretty close proximity to the house that I could understand as a safety hazard in a big storm. And then there were it looked like a few mature maples. And then I noticed a change in vegetation about halfway between the house and or ground cover, I should say, halfway between the house and the stone wall, a lot of ferns and other kind of upland vegetation, which kind of weighed in on my, kind of thoughts and decisions. I don't know if other people
Did anyone else make it out there? I don't know if you had a chance to get out there, Bill.
I know the property. I knew the prior owner, and
Okay.
I did drive by, so I did get a look at the trees. I did not stop in.
I'd say I had same initial thoughts, similar to Emily's, looking at where it transitioned to fern. And again, I could see a lot of the growth in close to the house. Again, for safety reasons, for a number of reasons, I could see why you'd want to remove that. The stream channel, we've had another house that actually connects onto this come before the commission many years ago. It's a pretty well-defined stream, but it's also very well shaded from both sides. And I was trying to determine that as I was going back to it, especially, like you said, you could tell a little bit of change in the ground cover and the plants that were on the ground. I'd say most of it's relatively flat going back to the stone wall, and even then it's relatively flat, if anything a little gradual, and then again a very clearly defined stream channel. So those were kind of my initial thoughts after going through. Rebecca, did you have any thoughts?
No, nothing different from last meeting.
Okay. Can I ask, are there any members of the public here to comment on this evening?
Just again, if you would like to comment, you can use the raise hand function, physically wave your hand, or you can use the chat function as well. And I am not seeing anyone.
Okay.
Brian, I was looking back at my site photos and just thinking about what I saw. I guess I'm still, even with looking at the plans, I'm still a little unclear when I was out there where that 100-foot buffer exists on site. And I think that really understanding that is important too. And trying to think about what a reasonable, oh, my computer.
Oh, no.
Emily will be back.
Yes, yeah, sorry. Are you trying to draw in the buffer zone? Is that what you're?
I am trying to draw, so the applicant had provided a septic plan that actually showed the buffer sort of like this. And it, well, sorry, that was a little close to the house, but it essentially corners at the well and then comes out from there. So the majority of the property, aside from the area to the front of the home or to the northeast of the single family home structure, is where the septic actually is. And that's the area that's most outside, but this actually comes this way a little bit more.
I apologize, my computer crashed, so I missed part of that, but I see, Rebecca, that's the 100-foot buffer that you drew in blue.
Excuse me, it is an extremely rough sketch of what they have on a septic plan, on an older septic plan. And essentially it corners at the well and comes in like this. So really, the driveway over to the septic is the area outside of the jurisdiction of the commission.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess in going back to my observations, I was trying to think of what a reasonable, what's the word? Where we could kind of meet halfway, in
Like
a reasonable,
compromise.
a compromise. Thank you. It's been a long day. A reasonable compromise, understanding that the applicant is interested in bringing some light into the rear of the house, that there is a concern for safety of the house and the people residing in the house with the mature pines. We've seen a lot of them come down in Bolton during the storms this past winter. So I was just thinking about, where we as a commission could say, taking down the mature pines and some of that growth, what is a reasonable offset from the house? Based on my observations with the vegetation and looking, at kind of what was happening with ground cover and tree growth, I wasn't really comfortable with clear cutting, 60 feet offset from the well, and getting rid of all of the saplings and flattening that out and seeding it for a lawn area. Because majority of that is in the 100-foot buffer upland wetland resource area.
Along those same lines, Emily, when I was trying to look at it, and I don't know if your photos help you, I was trying to figure using the stone wall as kind of a marker to try to figure, because again, I tend to be in the same thing where I think we can allow some clearing, but maybe not to that extent. And I was trying to think of coming off that stone wall, like X amount of feet toward the house from the stone wall should kind of be the limit of work. And I was trying to figure where those ferns, and I think I had one picture. I'm trying to look and see if I can figure out how about much that was, but
I hate to throw a number at it, but it was almost halfway between the house and the stone wall. And of course, I didn't go out with a tape measure, which actually would have been very helpful if I'd been prepared. But it seemed like we had a lot of that vegetation, that ground cover vegetation, about halfway, that halfway mark. There was a lot of sapling growth at the edge of the wooded area, and the pines were kind of scattered. And then there was a lot of, the saplings were kind of sprouting up around, but there was some heavy sapling growth right at the perimeter close to the house. But I don't know as a commission if it would make sense to kind of figure out an offset from the house that would allow some sunlight, but also preserve that upland wetland resource area, and still meet the needs of the applicant.
Could we propose something like this, allowing the larger pines to be cut back to say 2/3 of that distance from the well, 58 feet, 2/3 of that? And then the remaining part of it, I mean, where there are saplings and such after that, saplings and the smaller stuff stay. So they get rid of the bigger trees and allow some sunlight in, but we still protect, a good bit of what's on that backside.
I think a lot of those saplings will end up growing up and shading the area again. And I don't know, again.
That might be a while out though. I mean.
Yeah, that's true. I don't
Before
know.
they're gonna start shading the house.
Some of that growth was outside of our jurisdiction either.
So it pretty much comes to the edge of the lawn is where the jurisdiction is.
Okay.
At the back of the house, at least.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. I personally, and I won't speak for the entire commission, but I was okay with removal of the pines for safety. Those are so tall. And I think, like I said, I believe there were 5 total. And if that could be done in a way that would not completely damage the understory for some of the ones that were a little further back. But I did think that that was very reasonable, given that it was a safety concern. And then the clear cutting of some of the sapling growth, that there was a limit of work there. And then we requested that some of that, I think Rebecca had noted at the last meeting, that we maybe suggest a wildlife mix or something there. So it's not a green lawn per se.
But what extent, what distance from the home or from the wellhead are you talking about though?
I was trying to figure, I agreed with the mature pines coming down, and I think we can condition those. Trying to picture exactly where the well has, I'd almost say, well, if it's 60 feet from the house to the stone wall, I'd want to come in at least, I think, 20 feet from the stone wall. So maybe it's 40 feet from the back of the house.
And then
As the
leave that a
limit of
mix?
work. Right. And then so about 20 feet before the start of that stone wall, we go back to allowing it to naturalize.
Yes, I can agree with that. In the 40 feet closer to the home, we would see it was something that's native. Is that what you were talking about, Emily? Some native grasses or shrubs or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see all native shrubs planted if there are any shrubs planted. But we had talked about previously maybe a wildlife seed mix. So 20 feet from the stone wall is still about 50 plus feet from the house, the back of the house.
Okay.
And that's 40 feet into the 100-foot buffer, right?
Yeah, if we're assuming the buffer goes basically close up to the back of the house, that 40 feet would be going into the buffer. Or if the buffer ends kind of where their existing yard ends, it would probably be 30 feet into the buffer. Right, there's already about 10 feet between the house and the back of the existing yard.
Yeah, the offset for the stone wall was off of the well cap, not off of the back of the house. So this was 60, going back 60 feet from the
Gotcha.
well cap, which is about 10 feet behind the house.
Gotcha. we could always do it coming off the house. You know, if we say 40 feet from the back of the house or something along those lines, and use that as the key place to mark it on the map, or something you can come off of.
Sure. Let me see. I'm just gonna look at my photos again. I apologize.
Sorry.
So Brian, that would be mature pines anywhere in that area?
I think there were 5 that were marked.
I believe there were 5.
Yeah.
That's what we made a note of.
And they were for the most part in the half of this area that's closer to the home?
They were kind of scattered.
Right, there's
They were
one back by
within
the
this
wall.
whole area.
Okay. But we would allow those pines to be removed?
I personally was comfortable with that as a safety concern, because they are so tall and they have a
Okay.
very shallow root system. And if we had requested that just the pines were removed at a certain extent, then you would get some of that hardwood growth coming back up, which would be good too.
And I think there were 2 trees in the yard that were non-jurisdictional, and those would be fine to come down too, but it was the 5 that were marked in jurisdictional areas.
Right. And then I think what the applicant was requesting was that everything comes out. So
Right,
when we
right.
say that whatever offset off of the stone wall or off of the house, that's basically getting clear cut.
Yeah.
So saplings, all the trees that were tagged.
So of the 58 feet that are shown on the drawing, we're willing to go back 30 feet then? And then reseed that with a wildflower or a native mix?
And any native, if the applicant chooses to plant shrubs or plants, it would be a native plants.
But is that 30 feet what you're thinking about, Brian?
I'm trying to get it straight, seeing what we're picturing. Because I was thinking so far off the house that they could cut and seed as lawn, and then everything beyond that just allow to naturalize or remain as it is.
Okay.
And then the lawn area, we would do our standard no herbicide, no pesticide for lawn maintenance.
But that would then go back 40 feet from the back of the house, the side of the house.
Right, and that was just a number I kind of threw out to start. I mean, hey, I could see doing something smaller, shorter, but I thought that would give them basically kind of double the lawn they have now. And they'll have, when that light opens up, they'll kind of have that back wraparound. But still give us 20 feet or so from the stone wall, which is still 20 feet or so from the actual stream.
Okay.
All right.
Just one more question, Brian.
Go ahead.
Other than the pines in that area, are there other mature hardwoods that would come down? Or is it mostly just pines that were large in that area that they wanted to remove?
There were some maples that were probably 4 to 6 inches in diameter,
Oh, okay. So they're not the size of the pines.
but not many. And then there were a few even smaller, I believe, maples. But
Okay. So
6 inches, I think, may have been the biggest, if I remember
Okay,
correctly.
yeah, they're in a different discussion.
I personally would like to see, not necessarily, cherry picking trees to take out, but I would like to see more of this just left than, when we're talking about going 60 feet back from the well and clear cutting that all and planting lawn. That doesn't sit well with me, especially seeing the vegetation and the growth that is happening back there. I would like to see, aside from removing the pines in whatever buffer we choose or, vote on tonight, I would like to just see that untouched.
Yeah. So Emily, would there be a number you would be comfortable with coming back off the back of the house? knowing that, seeing how the lawn as it existed there, knowing they want to open it up a little bit and kind of extend that a bit. Is there an area, like an actual number from the back of the house that you'd be comfortable with if we kept everything natural beyond that?
30, 40. I mean, I think 30 feet off of the stone wall, leave that natural.
Yep.
And then we're okay with, so that's another 28 feet from the well cover, from the well post. 25 or 30 feet, maybe. I'm just trying to think of where there was some pretty dense vegetation.
Yep.
25 feet off of the stone wall. I'd like to maybe, is that reasonable?
Towards that,
If you're going off of the stone wall, we're saying 25 feet off the stone wall is we're not clear cutting, but any pines, mature pines in that area can be removed carefully, so as not to, destroy any existing vegetation. And then from the 25 feet to the well cover can be cut, seeded. So, and then I don't know if anybody wanted to put a condition in about using a wildflower mix, if we're okay with the applicant planting a grass lawn there. That was at one point farmland, because there was a fence, there was a wire fence. Of course, it's all forest now. But I did see an old wire fence along that stone wall when I was out there.
I would agree with Emily where within our existing bylaws, you have to mitigate, minimize, or do nothing within these areas. And that's what the commission is tasked with, conditioning and issuing decisions based on that information along with the Wetlands Protection Act. Under the Wetlands Protection Act, I don't think this is egregious in any form of the sense, because they're willing to leave some of it existing. I don't think the applicant has had an issue with that. So it's really under our bylaw, which is the most stringent. And under our bylaw, the 100-foot off of the wetland resource area is a resource area in itself. So I think it's completely reasonable if the commission were to ask that if the commission is allowing 35 feet off the back of the home to and up to where the well is to be clear cut or removed, take the pines out, take the vegetation out, to request of the applicant that be seeded with a native wildlife mix or wildflower mix. So not only does it allow for that sunlight to come in and produce the basically benefit that they're looking for, but it also still adds that nice habitat value and the value to that upland resource area that it serves, versus having it a lawn back there that may at the end of the day see fertilizer, see it being cut multiple times a year instead of just once or twice, which is essentially what that other wildlife mix would need. So I think as far as what the commission is reviewing on the bylaw and Wetlands Protection Act, I think this is a reasonable project, but I also think the commission's on par with asking for a seed mix other than something that's going to be maintained as a lawn.
Okay. Well, the applicants here, I didn't see who was by. Okay, the Yanks. All right. I'll probably ask you guys for your comments in a minute, but so from what we've discussed, what it would seem like would be possible is the mature pines that were marked when we came up for the site visit, they could all be removed. And that 35 feet off the back of the home could be clear cut, or could be, removal of the vegetation that's there right now. But all of those jurisdictional areas should be backfilled with a native wildflower mix or native seed mix to have something growing along those lines back there and not necessarily be maintained lawn. Is that kind of what I'm hearing from the full commission members? That kind of fall in line what people were thinking?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So for the applicants, does that make sense to you? Do you understand kind of what we were getting at?
First, can I just
Right.
double check because I'm not super clear. So the pine trees in that area, I don't know if there are 5, I kind of forget, but if there are 5, they can be removed. Is
The
that
ones
right?
you had marked. Yes, correct.
Okay.
And the
And-
ones that are non-jurisdictional, the ones that were right up by the house in the middle of your lawn. They weren't actually marked.
Oh yeah, those 2, they're yes.
Yeah,
you
those
remember
those
they
were
really close, but they're not pines. They're
Correct.
maple or something else. I don't know.
and I don't think they're jurisdictional to us, so you can remove those if you want to. Yeah, but the ones that are jurisdictional, the ones that had been marked.
Yeah. Okay. And then the area, did you say, because on my drawing, the schematic on the left, I mean, I draw like a red line, about 50 feet from the stone wall, which is the blue line.
Mhm.
And again, these are just schematic showing, so I'm not 100% sure about the distance. So I want to know, like, did you say 35 feet from that red line to the stone wall direction, or 35 feet from the house?
35 feet from the house. And how much room do you think was between the house and that red line?
Probably
mean-
about 10 feet.
Sorry, right?
Yeah, I'm
10
not
feet.
sure. Yeah, I'm from metric country, so I'm not sure about that.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, that's a good point. So about 3 meters, 3 or 4 meters.
Yeah, 4,
2 to 3 meters.
3 to 4.
3
Yeah,
to 4, yeah.
probably not a
Maybe
straight line,
5.
so it's tilted.
All right.
So you're basically saying, assuming the 58 is correct, is accurate, then you're basically saying from the stone wall, well, because 35 to, so it's, the stone wall is about 70 feet from the house.
Yeah, and
So
I think
half of the area between the stone wall and the house.
that's what we were trying to look at. Yep.
Okay. So are you saying within that half of there, the 30 feet from the house, we can remove everything if we want?
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
But then afterward, it would, if you wanted to reseed it or plant something, to use either a native wildflower mix or a native seed mixture. It basically is kind of more of a natural mix, and it wouldn't necessarily be lawn then. It wouldn't be mowed and maintained lawn. It would be just more of a naturalized area with either native wildflowers or there's different native seed mixes you can get.
But it would also allow you to keep the trees out of that area.
Okay, so I have no idea about the native seed mix. Are they like small flower or grass that's not very tall, or how is that compared to lawn?
Yes, so it wouldn't be a lawn where it's cut very short. It would grow a couple feet tall, but it wouldn't be blocking sunlight. And some doesn't
do
even
not
grow
want
a
to-
couple feet tall. Some is like a foot tall.
Okay, so we can't do like regular lawn mowing, just like our front yard.
You can, to maintain that type of a native vegetation, if you're using native grasses or native wildflower mix, it would be maybe mowing once or twice a year, that area in particular. You can also plant, it sounds like the commission's open to native vegetation in general. So you could plant native shrubs and then prune the shrubs so that they're in that area. But the focus is the native species to continue that habitat and upland resource area value that currently exists today, but acknowledging the changes that you would like to make within reason.
Okay.
Okay.
So anything beyond the 35 feet from the house,
You can change.
even the small fern or vegetation or shrub, we can't touch them. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, they would just remain natural.
But if the pine trees, one or two, I don't know how many, if they fall in that area, it's okay to remove them. Because I don't know where they are.
You can take the pine trees.
Oh, yeah,
out
yeah,
there.
the pine trees you had marked, correct, yes, yeah, all the pine trees you can have removed.
Okay.
The ones that were marked, those 5, or the ones that all had the tags on them, regardless if they're within the 35 feet or not.
Okay.
But within the area between the stone wall and the house that were marked, so the commission's only talking about the ones that were marked within the area you designated and that were flagged when they went out to the site.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we also want that.
Okay, so the only difference is some maple trees or other trees that's marked, but they are beyond the 35 feet from the house. We won't be allowed to remove those. And then the other thing is anywhere from 35 feet from the house, like the small plants or small like shrubs, we're not gonna remove those. I think we're clear.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so Rebecca, one last time, anybody else from the public here to comment on this?
I see no one.
Okay, right. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing for 258 Harvard Road. I hear a second for closing.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
all right, Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Lori is here as well.
Sorry, Lori Stevenson.
That's okay. Aye.
All right, and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you.
Just a thought, I don't know if it's
Go
a
ahead.
good idea to have Rebecca maybe schedule a site walk with them and whether I'm familiar with native species here and give them some information on where to acquire different styles of native, what they're looking for height wise and on that idea, just to help them along a little bit, where they're not familiar with what's native for around here.
Sure.
Thank you. All right. Rebecca, my thinking is probably a -3 determination. Does that make sense? With conditions?
Yes, I was going to suggest with conditions, but yes, a -3 is appropriate.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that the commission issue a -3 determination for 258 Harvard Road with the following conditions. That the mature trees being removed are the trees that were previously marked and viewed by the commission. That the removal of vegetation and growth be limited to 35 feet off the back end of the existing home. And that the replacement of any removed vegetation within the resource area will be replaced with a native wildflower or other native seed mix or native shrubbery. And that, and no other additional conditions. Do I hear a second for it with those conditions?
Did you want to add in
Go ahead.
a site visit like Lori suggested?
Yep. And the additional condition that the town's conservation agent will have a chance to go out on site with the applicants to kind of walk them through what was determined and give them a better feel for where they can find or learn about different native seed mixtures or native plantings that we'll use in cases such as this. All right. Do I hear a second for that?
A second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye myself.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. I will be contacting you as a follow-up.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, the Bolton Conservation Commission will continue the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and under the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a request for determination of applicability for 100 Meadow Road, lot number 4. Rebecca, do we have an update on this?
We do. They have successfully moved everything outside of the potential vernal pool area, so within 100 feet of that area, and actually beyond 100 feet, associated with the driveway and single-family home. We are awaiting the stamped plans, even though we have received the final plans. It just, again, we're awaiting
The actual stamped?
professional stamp version. But other than that, they have moved everything outside of the jurisdictional area. And therefore, the commission has the ability to issue a determination saying everything has been moved outside of the jurisdiction, or they can issue a determination with the condition that applicant has stated they'll move everything outside and shall submit plans prior to construction, something to that nature.
If we were going to determine that it was non-jurisdictional, contingent upon getting the stamped final plans, that it was non-jurisdictional, is that a -1? That's one I don't use often. I know there's one that says, I can't remember.
I'm
it's
gonna look it up
4
right
or
now.
1. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. While you look, I guess I'll tell other commission members, I guess that's the way I would lean to do it, is to say that it's fine because it's non-jurisdictional, contingent upon us getting those finalized stamp plans showing that it is in fact non-jurisdictional. And now is an excellent time to look through the June 29th, 2021 minutes, if you haven't already.
So I believe it's actually a -4,
Okay,
which states the work described in the request is not within an area subject to protection under the act, including the buffer zone. Therefore, said work does not require the filing of a notice of intent unless and until said work alters an area subject to protection under the act. So that also protects the commission in the event that
changes.
it changes, because you're not confirming a delineation at this time, you're just confirming the work.
Okay, yep, that sounds like the one we would go with. All right. In that case, I'm going to make a motion that we close the public hearing for Meadow Road, number 100 Meadow Road, lot number 4. Do I have a second for closing?
Second,
All right. All those in favor for closing, Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
aye.
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an I myself. And I'd like to make a motion that we may have, that the commission has a -4 determination for Meadow Road Lot Number 4, contingent upon us receiving final stamped plans indicating that all the work will be outside of the buffer zone. Do I hear a second for that?
Second,
All right, all those in favor, starting with Emily,
aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Lori,
I,
and Rebecca, I'm an I myself.
Great, thank you.
Should we oh yeah, we get time. Are you good for me to move on? All right, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to discuss an application for an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for 159 Ballville Road. Do we have an update on this one, Rebecca?
We do. At about 1 p.m. this afternoon, I received the DEP file number for the Escalante International Project located at 159 Ballville Road. The file number is 1120696, and no comments were provided by DEP at this time.
Okay. So if we were to approve the ANRAD, what is the best way to make sure it is the most up-to-date one? In other words, yeah, I've
We'll get the
submitted
date.
with revisions on, submitted with yeah, the revisions approved at our, I can't remember what meeting it is now. It's been a while.
Let me pull up the date of that set of plans.
Yep.
And then we should just be able to vote on that.
Rebecca, May 17th was the date of their letterhead.
Yes, so I just pulled it up as well. Although I do appreciate that. It is the plan, the revised plans that had that modification was entitled Abbreviated Notice of Resource Area Delineation, Plan of Land in Bolton, Massachusetts, Worcester County, South District, dated April 15, 2021, and revised through May 3rd, 2021, prepared by DGT Associates, Inc., sheets 1, 5, and 8, which have been revised.
All right. In
So
that case,
I would just reference that in
that's
the,
what I was just gonna try to do. Okay, yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the ANRAD just previously mentioned and referenced.
so you're going to be issuing an ORAD.
I gotcha.
So you're
Yeah,
closing the public hearing and then issuing an ORAD if the commission's comfortable with it.
gotcha. All right. So I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing for the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for 159 Ballville Road. Do I hear a second for closing?
Second.
All right, all those in favor of closing, starting with Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca. I'm and I myself. I'd like to make a motion that we issue an ORAD for the project at 159 Ballville Road based upon the ANRAD that was previously referenced at tonight's meeting
For the Oaks course only.
for the Oaks course at the International Golf Course.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do I hear a second for that?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca. I am and I myself.
Great. And I wanted to specify the Oaks just because I know they want to have a site visit regarding the pines, so wanted to separate the two.
Very good. Oh, look at this. We hit our time kind of perfect. Can I move on or? All right. So the Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue a public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a notice of intent for Century Mill Road, Map 3.D, Parcel 75. Rebecca, do you want to give us a quick update?
Sure, the applicant has requested a continuation. They are trying to reach out to our peer reviewer so that their engineer can talk with our engineer and then submit a report, a follow-up report, and then comment to the commission.
Okay. Is there an available or best available time on the 27th if they were to be continued?
I believe 7 would work as of right now.
Okay. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for Century Mill Road, map 3.D, parcel 75 until our next public meeting, Tuesday, July 27th at 7:00 p.m. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am and I myself.
Thank you.
All right. Hoping people had a chance to look at the minutes earlier. I had looked through the minutes. I did not have any corrections. I did not see any typos. Does anybody else have any comments, questions, corrections for the June 29th meeting minutes? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes for our June 29th, 2021 meeting as drafted and submitted at this evening's meeting. Do I hear a second for the minutes?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am and I myself. Are you pulling up the update? Yeah.
Yes, about the trail.
Yes.
Okay. So our wonderful intern Brianna did write up a brief narrative about each of the locations. So the original proposed trail, just to orient the commission, is the trail that she had proposed as part of the map that we showed at the last meeting, and I will pull that up again shortly. The new explored trail was the new trail that was explored after the Conservation Commission provided some feedback to me, which I then relayed to her. She went back out on site, walked essentially at the toe of the slope, across the slope, and then at the top of the slope to try and find a better route that avoided wetland resource areas, uneven terrain or difficult terrain, and again, trying to still stay to the outer portions of the property to not cause significant fragmentation, which seemed to be one of the concerns that was brought up and was certainly valid. This is one of the images she took along the toe of the slope. The slope's over here to the right of the screen. You can see there's skunk cabbage. So at first, when she's walking out, she felt that there was upland, so she followed the area and then realized it brings you out into the floodplain here, which, as you can see, is wet for the majority of it. Then we have this, which was the opposite side of that tree. So again, upland area, but it does start to slope up. Not significantly yet, but it does end. Then she provided this image, which she actually brought back pictures of her shoes so that I could see how she was standing on the slope, because the picture doesn't really do it justice. It does start to slope up to the right of the screen and then is rather difficult terrain versus a gradual incline. And then down here is your floodplain and wetland resource area. And this is the hemlock stand along the edge or along the slope essentially as well. And then here's a better picture of the slope. This is higher up though. And then you have this pocket here where it's more level. She thought she could cross there, but then realized it dipped down slightly. So that is what she found. And on the map, essentially she came this, so she started upland, went around the wetland. This is the access off of the state, towards the state property off of 4 Bushmill Road. Here's the Taggart entrance here, or the Taggart frontage on 4 Bushmill here. She entered in. This is the original proposed trail, and then the route that she took to look at and then show the images. It was here along the toe of this slope. And then you have your hemlock stands right in here along this slope. You can see the contour lines. And she didn't find an area that was as level as up here or as dry. And she did note that in the write-up as well, that to cross the wetland, that could certainly be something that would be proposed, but it may need or require a boardwalk to get through, and then not to continuously impact the vegetation underneath. But I don't know if any of the commission members were able to get out or if they had any different findings. We're open to suggestions.
So what was the reason we couldn't use the rail bed?
That's back here. So it's not that we can't use it, it's that it goes onto private property. And the rail bed itself isn't an easement over private property. And we're still looking into this connection here, which will connect the scales obviously off because they're 2 separate screenshots, but to connect.
Aren't you talking about going through the same property though? When you get to the piece on the left and the new Taggart property?
No. So the piece on the left is 4 Bushmill Field.
Yeah.
That's down, if
Yeah, I
you're
know it.
using this map. Yeah, so it's down here, the state properties in between. There's wetland resource areas and floodplain all along the frontage along 4 Bushmill Road. So you'd have to come back into one of the private parcels to come upland from where the waterfall or where the mill structure is to connect to Taggart, or you could use the rail bed, or you could walk along the roadway. But
So those private parcels, are they part of the land that has been put into the forest legacy
yes, yep,
potential? I guess.
yes, yep, yes, you are correct. And then the other is the
And
Lancaster town land.
if it did end up in the forestry legacy, could we then put the trail on the rail bed?
We would still need to request it from the property owner.
Which would be the forest, which would be what, the US government?
No, it would be the current property owner, they're proposing a potential conservation restriction route. So
Wouldn't we need to request it from whoever holds the conservation restriction? So we,
that as well, yes, but
Yeah.
if the language is in the conservation restriction that allows for public access, then it would be, so the town, as you know, at our last meeting, or a few meetings ago now, the commission voted in favor of holding that conservation restriction. There's another parcel in town that is going to be donated outright. So this is a different, where a conservation restriction is being donated, the private landowner still retains ownership over the land.
gotcha.
So if the language in the conservation restriction, as it typically does, has public access in it, then the commission can go to the property owner and have that conversation and say, you know, this is the language in the CR, as we do with many other properties. We have the ability to communicate with the property owner now, but we wanted to solidify the trails within the existing town-owned properties first, and then make that connection point so that they could see, this is what we've done so far. Now we just need a connection point to connect these properties, and then therefore the value of that connection as well.
I would still be opposed to that new trail. It goes through pretty much the biggest part of that open area. In my experiences during the winter, there's deer in there all the time. Almost any time I go cross country skiing through it or anything like that, there's animals in there. So
Oh, there-
if there's a trail in there, I think you would eliminate one of their more often used winter areas.
Sure, and I definitely appreciate that. I think that's extremely valid regarding a concern. I think deer, and I've seen plenty of proof that deer are within that area, and I've seen the deer walking around myself or darting around. I think we need to be aware that this is a wildlife corridor, and that, yes, do we want to be disturbing wildlife? The other side of it, though, is I've witnessed, as I'm sure you may have as well, is that on our other conservation properties, the new trails that go in, for instance, the new extension on Vaughan Hills that the commission allowed, I think maybe 2 years ago now, the deer actually use the trail because it's the path of least resistance. So if you're walking along the trail, you'll see hoof prints right there. And again, I'm not stating that's a benefit or.
Yeah, but you're still pushing the deer during the winter when the females
yes. Yep.
are most apt to feel the stress while they're pregnant, and you know, people are walking through there. They have to be somewhere else. That's all. And if there's a possibility in the next year or two of actually moving that trail onto the rail bed, I think it's worth it to wait until we know whether we can get it on the rail bed or not, because essentially that's what the loop trail is right now, the existing trail through there in the rail bed.
Yes, so the existing trail right now comes like this and goes back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were trying to keep people away from these steeper areas and then go along the top of the slope over here.
No, I understand.
Which
Yeah,
is what-
I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm just
there's a
expressing that's why
possibility-
that was there.
If there's a possibility of getting to the rail bed in a year or two, then it might be worth waiting to see if that'll happen.
Yeah, so it will definitely be more like 2 to 3 years regarding, because of the Forest Legacy program. And I think it's 3 years out until they see the return. And I'm not clear on whether or not the CR is in place before, and I would doubt that. I would presume that it occurs all at the same time. And the other aspect is I would want to get ahead of this now and be directing people to appropriate locations. And if it's just simply the trail, the cart path that exists, and then the trail here that exists already, and it's just marking that and delineating that better, I think that's acceptable as well. But just knowing how people use the trails, a lot of feedback, not only from our properties, but other conservation properties are, people like to see the loop. And that wasn't promised. It was public access was promised. Forestry was
No, I still
promised.
think it's
So
a possibility of a loop on the rail trail. I think it's worth waiting, that's all.
yeah, and
If it's
I
2
agree
years
with that.
out.
I'm just saying this is why we came to this, but we're open to suggestions on what is appropriate for the property, of course.
If we were looking to get out of the middle of the parcel, I personally would, if it's possible, love to see a path along Forbush, because walking along that road, you know, especially if you're looking for a peaceful hike through the woods and then having to walk back up Forbush, I don't know if there's any potential to get around, or even if it kind of came around the wetlands. You know, if the decision by the commission was to eliminate that cut through in the middle, it would be nice to kind of look into whether we could do some kind of a path off the side of the road. I don't know if that's a possibility, but just kind of, you know, tagging on to what Bill had said and the concerns, that would just be something that would be nice, instead of walking against traffic.
Yes, and that is actually what we looked at first, to, again, keep in mind exactly what Bill's talking about, but also use sort of existing disturbed areas. And what our intern looked at was, is there at least 3 to 5 feet along the shoulder that you're not balance beam walking, to be general, along the road, but again, on the opposite side of the guardrail, because that's protecting you from traffic as well. And there was only a few areas where that is present. The majority of it simply just drops off to the wetland. So we can definitely take a second look at it, but I don't believe that it would make the full stretch. But that being said, maybe there's an area to cut in and go back. Maybe to put in a crossing or something like that to loop back that way. I'm not sure, but then that leads us into cutting through the open areas again. But so the short answer is we can definitely look into that again. We did do a preliminary look at that, and it didn't seem like there's enough space the full length from the state access road to the Taggart frontage. Okay, so it sounds like for the time being, we should remove, where's my little? We should remove this section of trail along here and just have it be the existing cart path and the existing loop section here from the rail bed. Is that what the commission is comfortable with? And if so, I would respectfully ask that the commission vote somehow or to solidify that, so that we can continue working on that and then leave this section for now.
Bill, did you have any concerns with coming back and connecting to the state access road?
So at this point,
No,
So coming off of the
no.
existing cart path, and at least, because that, I mean, obviously walking along Forbush is not, you know, the best, but it's nice. It really is nice to have a loop. And if that is not a concern, I'm wondering if the commission should just leave that proposed trail in for now.
this one.
Yeah, coming off, Rebecca, where you had noted the existing cart path and then coming back and connecting back to that access road.
Yep.
And it would be nice if we could, Rebecca, in the future, work on trying to hook up with that rail bed that's there.
Absolutely. I can confirm that is 100% something that we are
Yeah.
looking
No,
into.
that's great.
Yeah.
I think it's a great loop as it sits like that.
Well, I was gonna say with the rail, but I'd love to, you see where it connects back in with the state road, rather than taking a right and going back to Furbush. If you took a left and went up around their swimming hole and connected back in with the rail trail, you could do a loop around that way.
Mhm.
But again, this is all in the future. But it is sounding to me, Rebecca, like we're saying possibly, yeah, eliminating that central trail for now and having it, and out and back basically to the state road where you can loop, and also you can do the little bump out to the rail trail.
Yeah,
Bump back.
and if it looks like we can't do anything in whatever the time period is, 2 years or 3 years, then maybe we do put that trail through the center. If we could keep it open and use the rail trail, I think that would be something that's worth waiting for.
Yeah, I would agree. And Bill, to that point, I would just, from my experience, short term, other people creating trails, and then also the commission trying to just revegetate a trail, allow it to, when there are clear other access routes around it. It is very difficult once you say there's public access on this trail, even on a short segment, to say, we're closing it now, please go the other way. So that's why I'm happy to remove something now before we create and delineate it on site, to ensure that it doesn't get worn in, and then to direct people in an appropriate location. If we add something later on, I think that's fine, that's suitable. I would not say, though, if the commission's not comfortable with this segment now, I would say let's hold off until a later date when we think, okay, we're going to add it in, or just simply wait for the rail trail. But I'm comfortable with that. I would not be comfortable with saying let's do it and then take it away later.
Yep. Okay. So Rebecca, you were looking for a vote, right? And if I didn't authorize and approve the trails as discussed at this evening's meeting, would that be sufficient?
It would be, but what I would actually say is using the existing cart path so that it's identified, because it's clear, it's there, it's existing. It does need some work, but then it's clear what was approved instead of the trails discussed, and that, not to me, but a future person may take that wrong. Not that I'm leaving. Stressing you out.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, after my heart attack. Okay. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize and approve the trail for the Taggart property as it to stick with or to stay with existing cart paths, and not to create or carve any new paths at this point in time on said property. All right. Do I hear a second for that motion?
A second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well. And- Sorry. Rebecca.
That's it.
Okay. Do you want to give us an update on Trail Work Day tomorrow?
Sure. So we're doing a trail work day tomorrow on the Taggart property, and then the Forbush Mill trail that already exists. What we're doing is we're just doing some cleanup. There's some small vegetation that's grown up, so we're just pruning that back, keeping it open. And then we're going to be lining the trails with down logs just to ensure that it's delineating throughout all the seasons. And this is one of the best times to do it because we can find the down logs, move them into place while they're dry and not sopping wet and heavy. So I encourage and invite anyone who's able to attend to do so, but the work should go fairly quickly. So even though it's maybe rainy, it may be a little warm, it should be okay.
Is it tomorrow?
Yes.
What time?
It starts at 9:30.
Okay. Any other updates
I do not at the moment.
Right. Any members of the commission have any new business or funny stories they want to share? Okay, hearing none. I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn the July 6, 2021 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. Do I hear a second for adjourning?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an aye as well.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Everyone take care.
Thank you. Good night.